Whether thou art a ghost that hath come from the earth, or a phantom of night that hath no home, or one that lieth dead in the desert, or a ghost unburied, or a demon, or a ghoul, whatever thou be until thou art removed, thou shalt find here no water to drink. Thou shalt not stretch forth thy hand to our own. Into our house enter thou not. Through our fence break through thou not. We are protected, though we may be frightened. Our life you may not steal, though we may be scared to death.
Welcome to Scared to Death, Creeps, Peepers, Roberts, and Annabelles. I'm Dan.
Hello, Dan. I'm Lulu Marie.
Hello, Lulu Marie.
Hello, good sir.
So you have a Red and Blue Foundation charity announcement, and then we are off into the show.
That is correct. Yeah. So just a few weeks ago here in Coeur d'Alene on June 29th, tragedy struck our small community. That day, firefighters were ambushed when a young man set a brush fire on a local hiking spot called Canfield Mountain. He then opened fire on two firefighters who responded to the call, amongst others, and two men, Battalion Chief Frank Harwood and Battalion Chief John Morrison, paid the ultimate price for being first responders, for being the kind of brave humans that run into literal fires, knowing full well they may never come out the other side. And that day it happened. And also that day, engineer Dave Tisdall was wounded when he took gunfire to his chest and his spine. He was shot twice and pinned inside of his rig. And despite being severely injured, he continued to communicate with his fellow firefighters, describing what he could see and where he thought the shooter may have been. It's unknown how many lives he may have saved with his bravery. Tisdall has been moved to a rehab facility in Denver where he's trying to regain the use of his legs. And to honor these brave individuals, we are donating $12,300 to a local nonprofit here in Coeur d'Alene called the Red and Blue Foundation. This was established in 2005, and their sole purpose is to support first responders in Kootenai County who experience catastrophic circumstances, to help their families affected during these unforeseen traumas, and to help first responders get to the mental health support that they need throughout their entire careers. So if you'd like to learn more or make a donation, please visit redbluefoundation.org. And then also we'll be putting $1,370 into our scholarship fund for 2026.
Oh, good. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah. And now I will share. I'll start with my stories, my previews. My first of two supposedly true paranormal horror stories comes from Greenland. Revolves around a wandering spirit known as a qivittoq, and I won't give away any more than that. And then my next tale is more of a classic ghost encounter set in a church, and I really, really like the way it's structured. Both stories have, in my opinion, some good, disturbing moments and details.
Nice. Well, my stories, I themed them together as I was combing through the submissions, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. They go together.
Yeah.
Our first tale is going to take us to Croatia.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and we're going to learn about a local legend there that is very similar to what we know as Llorona.
Okay.
And then my second tale is about La Llorona. So,
a lot of white women.
Yep.
A lot. Women in white dresses.
Near water.
Near water, yeah. And we talked about that recently, either on a bonus episode or a weekly episode about another spirit very similar to La Llorona, too. We just talked about her.
Yeah, she is hanging around right now.
Yep.
She's in the ether, so to speak.
It's in our heads.
Uh-huh.
You socked and ready to rock?
Ooh, cute rhyme. I am socked with fuzzy Smokey the Bear slipper socks. And
Fun.
They crack me up, and now I'm ready to be rocked.
Okay. My first story comes from a Danish woman's post on a subreddit dedicated to sharing potentially paranormal encounters. The woman who gave herself the fake name of Nora was spending a few months in northeastern Greenland to do some research on the local musk oxen population. And just a little bit of context, musk oxen, they're these big, furry, horned animals, distantly related to bison, more closely related to sheep and goats, actually. I would not have guessed that, though. They've existed in the northernmost parts of Canada and Greenland for thousands of years, and over the past century or so, other northern countries like Russia and Norway have started trying to introduce or reintroduce musk oxen populations of their own, as the big beasts are great for Arctic ecosystems, tourism, and they can supply meat and this very specialized, valuable wool. According to her post, Nora was set up there for a few years ago, while she was in her mid-20s, to do research on the big beast for the University of Copenhagen on behalf of the Danish government. And while this background info on musk oxen will not directly apply to the story, it seemed worth explaining why she was living alone in a research hut in one of the most isolated areas of Earth. Although her post does not include where exactly she was staying, the comment section seemed pretty positive that her story took place in the town of qivittoq. The post mentions the story taking place in northeastern Greenland, and qivittoq is a town of about 350 people and basically the only year-round permanent settlement in that area of the island. Sounds like one of the worst places in the world to encounter anything paranormally terrifying, because where can you go to escape it? There might not be another place to stay in the entire town. If your home starts to feel haunted, you'd have to leave the entire region because there's no other nearby town to quickly get to. And leaving the region might take a bit depending on the weather. There's no roads connecting qivittoq to any other settlements. You can only get in or out by helicopter or boat and, specialized planes. On top of all that, polar bears, fairly common there, and a good chunk of the year is spent in near total darkness. Okay, so now that I've set the stage for this encounter claim, let's hear it. Time now for the tale of what else could be out here. Life in my new home, such a remote and unforgiving place, took some getting used to. It definitely took me a little while to get into a good groove with my research and all my other various tasks, like basic maintenance on the little research hut I was staying in and making myself food with very limited grocery options compared to back home in Denmark. But once I got the hang of things, the first few weeks really flew by. Some days I even had enough time to hang out around town, where I made a few friends and somehow ended up adopting an adorable old sled dog, which is a pretty ridiculous story of its own. Thinking back on it, I'm pretty sure my whole first month was great. And even when I had what was technically my first paranormal experience in early October, I just thought I was watching some hiker trekking along out in the distance, which wasn't creepy at all at the time. Basically, I'd gotten into a routine of bundling up in a bunch of cold weather gear and sitting outside and relaxing after dinner every night. At first, the sun was normally still up after dinner, and the view of the sky around sunset was just totally insane. So many colors. Pretty amazing spot to sit and relax. One of these evenings, early in October, I saw a hiker way out in the distance. I had an early dinner, and it was still light out, which I'm mentioning because otherwise I would have been totally creeped out. And even though I was on the outer edge of town, tourists hiking out a few miles away from town certainly was not unheard of. So, not a big deal. If I hadn't seen him again 2 weeks later, I probably would have never remembered him. The second time I saw him, it was dark, but the northern lights were putting on a crazy show, and the stars were pretty bright, so I could still see his figure way out in the distance. His pace was steady but not rushed, and he was slowly making his way across my field of view. As I'm writing this, I'm realizing I don't actually have any way to be sure it was the same guy, but I had such a strong feeling at the time that I didn't even question it. Anyways, I was pretty shocked to see him, or anyone, hiking so far out at night. But even beyond that, what really freaked me out was that there was this massive storm moving in. Eastern Greenland is pretty well known for a certain type of storm called a qivittoq. They're these crazy, intense windstorms. Qivittoq even means the one who attacks you in English. And a big one was supposed to roll in the next day. But even with all that in mind, I probably would have let him be and convinced myself he knew what he was doing. But here's the thing. The direction he was headed, to the northwest of my hut, there's nothing out there. Like, literally nothing but snow and ice. No structures, no trees, not even big rocks to hide behind for protection from the wind. No other towns for, well, thousands of miles, technically, I guess. You'd have to travel across the ice and sea to the other side of the earth. Normally, I would never call out to an odd man while I was alone and miles away from civilization. But getting caught in a spot like that during a windstorm meant certain death. And once I realized that, I yelled out without even thinking, "Hey! Bad weather tomorrow!" He clearly heard me. He stopped abruptly and turned to face me. A few seconds went by with us just staring at one another. But then he turned back again and kept walking, and I wondered if he'd understood what I'd shouted. His reaction totally convinced me that this was a dumb tourist in need of saving, and now I was fully committed to truly getting his attention and having him understand me. I ran inside, grabbed a flashlight, and then came back out and yelled again while I waved it around. "Hey! There's a storm coming! Get inside!" He turned to face me again. But this time, I felt a deep shudder. I wouldn't even describe it as a gut feeling. There was some outside force suddenly telling me that even though I couldn't make out his features, he was too far away, there was something wrong with that man out in the distance. And just as I felt that, he began to walk towards me, keeping the same steady pace which now felt unsettling. I slowly sat back down in my chair. Where was that feeling coming from, I wondered. I tried to remind myself that I'd literally just called him towards me. He was now only doing what I had hoped he would. But now I couldn't push this strange feeling down. So I just sat there watching him, going over my plan for what to do once he got here. My plan went something like, no need to socialize with him. If he still wanted to keep walking after I tell him about the storm, that was his choice. He was not my responsibility. If he needed shelter and couldn't make it to wherever he had come from for some reason, I would let him take the living room and I would go straight to bed. My bedroom door locks, and I have a big protective dog with me. For the next minute or two, I watched him walk closer. I kept thinking about how everything would be totally fine once I talked to him, but I felt so scared. And the closer he got, the more scared I felt. And then his steady walk started to change, and I felt myself feeling more afraid than ever. I watched him start to speed up his pace, and within just a few seconds, he'd started to run. It was fast enough to be a sprint, but also was somehow steady, like he could run like that for miles. I have never seen anyone run across the snow like that, not before or since. For a few seconds, I kept staring like nothing had changed, but finally some self-preservation instinct kicked in. My gut was telling me that something was very wrong, that no one should be able to run like that, not in the cold, not across the snow. It wasn't right. I started to get worried. I no longer had interest in meeting him. There was no way I was going to stay in the same house by myself with whoever this was. My whole body was screaming for me to get away from him as fast as humanly possible. Thankfully, the keys to my ATV were in my pocket, and even though he was getting closer fast, he was still pretty far away. I got up and got on the ATV, turned on the engine, and shoved my thumb into the throttle. But it didn't move. The engine still needed to warm up. My stomach dropped. My body shut down. My back was turned to the man, and I was worried about turning around to look at him. I was worried about what I would see. Soon it started to sound like he was just a few feet behind me, and I just sat there waiting to feel him grab me. I wanted to scream, but my mouth wouldn't open. It was the worst moments of my life, but thank God the engine had warmed up enough to really run, and I was off. I have no idea how close he actually got. I took off and didn't look behind me for the entire drive back into town. Luckily, I'd made a friend, a woman named Elika, who was around my age. I stopped in front of her house, got off, and banged on her door. She opened the door with a confused look on her face, and I basically collapsed onto her. She did a great job of calming me down. But as I was explaining what had happened, I could tell by the expression on her face that she knew something she wasn't telling me about what I'd seen. I asked her if she had seen this man too. Who was he? She paused before asking, "Are you sure he didn't have a sled? Or even a big pack?" I paused for a moment to try and remember what he looked like before I answered, "No, I don't think so. Who is he?" She just stared at me for a few seconds before she said something like, "Why did you think that thing was a hiker? It didn't have a pack. And you saw it on multiple nights?" I stopped her from saying anything more and asked what she had meant when she'd called it a thing. And she asked me if I had ever heard of a qivittoq. I hadn't, but apparently everyone in Greenland is familiar with this thing, at least to some degree. Basically, for as long as settlements have existed in Greenland, getting exiled from one has been a death sentence. There's almost no way to live on your own in such an unforgiving place. Unsurprisingly, those who have gotten exiled generally haven't taken the news very well. If they get kicked out in the summer, it might be warm enough for them to survive for at least a few weeks or even a few months, completely alone, filled with anger, probably slowly starving to death if they can't catch enough game or fish. By the time winter comes, they'll almost certainly die, and fast, unless they can somehow find an abandoned shelter outside of some other settlement. Horror stories have built up over the years over some qivittoqs that have somehow survived more than just a few months and have become like wild beasts, more animal than human. Translated into English, the name qivittoq actually means mountain hermit or mountain walker. And eventually people began to believe that some of these reclusive exiles didn't die and instead became evil spirits. They turned into monsters, going mad and selling their souls to strange gods to survive. And then stories began to be told of villagers who ventured too far away from their settlements or were living alone like I was, on the very outer edge of the settlement, and they got attacked or even killed and eaten by a qivittoq. Elika told me that around a century ago, when her town was first being settled, the townspeople exiled a man for murder, and that since then, some believe he has lived on as a qivittoq. Elika added that a few years after the man was exiled, a local woman disappeared after venturing out on a hike. Her body was never found, but some of her clothing was, and her clothes had blood on them. The scientist in me said that what Elika told me was nothing more than superstition, but still, enough of me believed that there might have been something to her story, enough that I didn't want to return to my cabin, and she let me stay the night. I went back to my cabin the next morning, shortly before the storm. Elika's brother and uncle walked me back and made sure no one else was around. Everything looked as it had before. Nothing had been disturbed, and no one even found any tracks coming from the direction I'd seen him. But also, the wind had been blowing, and the ground was frozen enough that it would have been hard to spot those tracks. The pitarack that blew in hours later was a bad one, and I didn't come out of my cabin again for a whole 3 days. I just stayed inside with my dog. Obviously, since I'm writing this, I survived. But something else happened. On the 3rd day, shortly before the storm subsided, someone pounded on the door. Before what I'd seen, I would have just opened the door without question. Somebody needed help. They were freezing. They could die. But that bad feeling from before returned, and I asked who they were. They didn't answer. But they did make a sound. A horrible, hungry-sounding groan. And it left me feeling terrified. I didn't say anything more, but my dog started growling and snarling. Boom! Whoever was out there slammed something up against the door, maybe their fists, hard, and then I heard nothing. The next day I went outside in the dim light of what little day we had, and I saw their tracks. Someone had walked towards my cabin from where I'd seen that man before, and then they had walked back out towards nothing, and they'd done that in that storm. I don't want to believe in monsters, in some qivittoq, but what else could it have been? I was only there a few more weeks. I never sat outside again to enjoy the feeling of the sun on my face or to stare up at the northern lights. I never had anyone else visit my cabin, at least not anyone I didn't know. And that's it. That is my story. I'm not sure I'll ever really understand what happened, but I'll probably never stop thinking about it. What was it? Who was it? And what did he or it want with me?
It's weird.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of those stories about, claims of just like what looks like a man out in the distance, kind of like, the shadowy silhouette of somebody out on the snow and the ice, somewhere in Greenland and just wandering around.
Yeah, I mean, that would be so upsetting just because you are so isolated. And just, ugh.
And that would be crazy to be exiled. And I get it.
I know, that's wild.
Because if you have a tiny settlement, you don't have a jail. These are like Inuit settlements there. There's no jail. There's nowhere to contain somebody. If somebody, is violent or is like a murderer, I get the punishment, if not execution, being exile. And really, in this kind of, terrain, exile is execution.
Yeah. And it makes sense, like you're saying. Yeah. Like, what else are you going to do?
Right. And I guess there is that small chance that they could wander through the weather long enough to make it to another settlement where somebody doesn't know what they had done or find some, there's plenty of abandoned settlements. Like there's been like kind of hunting, fishing settlements along the coast of Greenland over the years that'll be, that'll pop up. And then for whatever reason, sickness, better fishing changes in fishing and hunting, and where the game's going, and they'll just completely abandon it and move. So there is like a fair amount of like abandoned old buildings.
Right, where you could seek refuge.
Yeah, but then you gotta
But then so to figure out how to build a fire, get food. I mean, it's freaking cold there.
Yep, there's not a lot of options, get food and stuff. And then also get the right kind of food so you don't get nutritional deficits that are essentially diseases, because the food variety is so incredibly limited as far as vegetation. I mean, I don't think there is fruit.
Right.
You're not gonna get any fruit. And I don't even know what kind of vegetables, roots and stuff, I guess you would get along the coast, maybe.
Don't you get scurvy if you don't have fruit?
Yeah, if you don't get vitamin C, I think but there must be some equivalent in some of the.
Well, I guess I could just take a supplement also.
But back then, the Inuits, I mean, they didn't have access to fruit.
Yeah. No, I meant now though.
Yeah. But I'm saying that because they didn't get scurvy, they clearly found some nutritional equivalent.
Yeah, something. I don't know what else vitamin C is in outside of oranges, but I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's in quite a few things. Yeah. But I don't know what it would be up there. I have some pictures.
Okay.
This first one is a pic of just a little hut way up north in Greenland with the northern light shining above it.
Dang, that's so beautiful though.
I know the sky, because there's no light pollution. And also maybe even like it's like nothing. There's no lights and no scenery even to distract from it. It's just there's not much else other than the sky, just rock and snow on the ground to look at. No trees.
It's so crazy. I don't know if I would be comfortable out there by myself, even if it's just like you and me.
I wouldn't. I don't think so.
I just don't think.
I don't need to do that.
I don't think that I would feel safe. Like if something happens.
Yeah, for me, it's like a risk reward thing where it's like,
Exactly.
yeah, it's beautiful, it's awesome, but I don't have any interest in like being in a spot like that where if something goes wrong, it's like life threatening suddenly. Like the view isn't worth it to me.
Well, and there are so many other like cool places in the world that you can go see the Northern Lights, and maybe it's not as pure, but you can see them very well, very clearly, and have the comfort of safety.
Yeah, exactly. This next pick.
Oh my gosh.
These things are crazy, these musk oxen.
I love them. They're so cute.
Yeah, they can survive all the way up at the very northern tip of Greenland, like
That's
way
wild.
above the base of the Arctic Circle.
They're like DDs.
Yeah, they weigh between 400 and 900 pounds.
Holy crap.
In captivity, they can actually get up to 1,400 pounds.
Ah!
And they can run up to 37 miles an hour.
When they weigh that much?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, they eat grass, Arctic willows, and they get eaten by Arctic wolves.
Wow.
Yeah, but they have this like kind of like it's like a wool that's part of like they have like multiple layers of protection from the cold.
Uh-huh.
And they have some kind of wool, and now I can't remember how to say it, the name of it, but it is like highly sought after and very expensive. Like if you had a sweater made out of that, it would be like a minimum of like $1,000 sweater.
Got it. Like more valuable than cashmere.
I think so, because it's just they only live in these very inhospitable areas, like way up in the northern tip of Canada, way up in Greenland, way up in like this top of Scandinavia, like Lapland and stuff.
They're very cool looking though.
Mm-hmm, yeah, they are. And then this next one, this is the little town of qivittoq. About 350 people live here.
Wow.
So like, yeah, it's just, in the summer, it's just rock and dirt. And in the winter, it's just snow and dirt. Yeah, it's too cold, too barren for trees. There's one grocery store, one church, one restaurant/bar. It's basically like a little burger spot.
Uh-huh.
They do have a police/fire station. They have a school with an indoor gym, outdoor artificial turf soccer field.
Funny.
Very small medical facility, but no permanent doctor. Just a couple nurses. And then this is just a different, angle of the town. Cute little colorful houses, but it is way out there by itself.
I don't know that I need to do that.
And then finally, just an illustration from cdna.artstation.com of qivittoq.
Okay. I see. Man shape and then like
They remind me of the
layers
Watchers.
yeah. Layers of protection that have just come from the necessity to stay warm and stay alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, another monster that we've yet to discover before this episode.
I know. I do love that. Here we are.
Yeah.
Like we're going to be starting year 7 here soon.
A lot of
Actually,
legends
next
out there.
episode, and still learning new things.
So much lore, and yeah, it's really cool.
It is really cool. I do like what I'm starting to recognize is that across all cultures, there's versions of the same thing over and over.
Yeah, we have the same fears. Or you could argue that there's like whatever, dimension has these monsters, they're just going to like reveal themselves in similar ways across the world.
Yep. And they make it like, so that it's understandable to your culture.
Yeah.
Like skinwalkers or, qivittoqs or Llorona. It's like, yep, we're just going to take this same thing.
Yeah.
To me, it's almost like how we all cry, we all laugh. Like those are two of the most commonly shared emotions across all of humanity. Well, as is fear, right? The opposite side of, love and excitement and laughter and joy is sadness and death and fear. And so it's just the same fear played out over and over that we can all relate to, whether it's Llorona or qivittoq. It's like it's just another way of capitalizing in this alternate universe. They're just capitalizing on this fear that we have.
Yeah, it's that same argument with religion as with the paranormal of is God similar to man because God was invented by man or because God invented man? Same thing with like the similarities in all these paranormal stories. Is it all similar because the human experience, the human condition, the core of it is the same no matter where you are, which is such a good argument to be empathetic and to be like global citizen.
Yeah.
It's like we're all dealing with the same kind of stuff in some way. And are these entities similar across the world because of that similarity within humans? Or is it the opposite? And there is these similar monsters that just exist outside of us and then display themselves and are interpreted through slightly different cultural lenses.
Yeah.
You want to leave Greenland and head west to the United States?
Sure, let's go.
And the second story, posted a few years ago on a paranormal experiences forum by an anonymous man claiming to have encountered something that scared the shit out of him while working the graveyard shift at a church. I can't really say much else without giving away spoilers that will ruin it, so we'll just dive in. Time now for the tale of It Knows My Name. I'm sorry if this post is kind of incoherent. This whole thing happened to me just last night, so while the details are still very fresh in my mind, my nerves are pretty shot. Okay, here goes nothing. For 4 years, I've been the caretaker of a big megachurch compound in the Northeast United States. It's not a compound as in cult compound, it's just a really massive property with a couple of really big buildings. There's the church itself, which is both gigantic and pretty old. The manse, which is where the minister, who is also pretty gigantic and old, where he lives, and 3 apartments which are rented out to underprivileged and struggling families in the community. Also, I live there too in another residence. In addition to the church, as caretaker, I'm responsible for the general upkeep and maintenance of all shared spaces. Basically, I'm the janitor, and I work nights. And last night, I started my shift at 9 p.m. in the main church sanctuary like I always do. The smell in there is strong, like old wood polish and old paper. Most people probably wouldn't like the mustiness of it all, but I find it kind of comforting. And I like being alone and getting these places all to myself. Most of my friends think my job is kind of weird or even scary, working alone in these places at night, but I don't. It's not that I'm super tough or anything. I'm just not creeped out by the prospect of being alone in the church at night, or until last night at least I wasn't. The dark has never really bothered me either. During my shift, I only ever turn on the light in whatever room I'm working in, and I don't really worry about what might be going on or what might be lurking, I guess, in any of the dark rooms around me. Before last night, none of this has literally ever really been a problem. After I finished up in the sanctuary, my next stop was the admin offices, which are also on the first floor of the church. It took me about an hour to empty the trash cans, vacuum the carpet, Windex the glass doors, dust the shelves and stuff. It all felt very normal. Peaceful even. Then I headed upstairs to the daycare center. Now, I will say that even though my job in general hasn't freaked me out before last night, I have definitely made some what the heck comments in the daycare center. And I've definitely always thought it looks creepy in a way a dollhouse can look creepy. It has this grungy yellow foam carpet, bunch of these little plastic chairs, heaps of worn-out toys, including a lot of dolls that look like they've been through a lot, beaten up by a lot of different kids over a lot of different years, and a bunch of old faded posters of Bible verses or children playing. On one wall, there's also this faded cartoony mural of Jesus holding a lamb that is disturbing to look at, even in the bright light of day. Even the minister agrees. There's something unsettling about the way the lamb's blue eyes really seem to bulge out of its head. Well, last night I was cleaning out the diaper bins in the storage closet and avoiding eye contact with the lamb when I first heard it. It sounded muffled and far away, but I definitely heard it. It was a man's voice, and he said just one word, and it made my blood turn ice cold. He said my name. Someone definitely, for sure, called out to me by my name. I froze, my hand still on the trash bag, my back to the closet door. I couldn't move. I waited and I just listened. I strained to hear whoever had just said my name speak again. But now it was just quiet. Nothing but the deafening sound of my own breathing. Sam! Terror jolted me out of my paralysis. I swung around to face, well, I'm not sure what I was expecting to face. Some guy, I guess, but the room was empty. Nothing to miss. Except the door. It was gaping wide open when I know for a fact that I shut it securely when I first came in. That's something I always do. I know I said I'm not afraid of something lurking in a nearby room, but also just in case someone were ever to sneak in, I don't want to make it easy for them to get the jump on me. Slowly, I walked over to it and peeked my head out into the dark hallway. It was all darkness and shadows, except for a dim yellow exit sign above the emergency staircase. I walked down, looked down the stairs, keeping my eyes and ears peeled for any glimpse of movement or any sound, but the stairwell was totally and completely empty, and I didn't hear a thing. I darted back into the daycare center and slammed the door shut behind me. I told myself maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe it was something echoing from outside, maybe the wind. Heck, maybe my blood sugar was low. That happens sometimes. Makes my ears do weird stuff. I finished cleaning up the center as fast as I possibly could. And by the time I was done, I'd gathered up enough courage to venture back into the hallway and finish my rounds on the second and third floors, though this time with every single light on. After that, it was time for me to head to the residential buildings, which are actually accessible directly from the church through a covered footbridge that links the third floor of the church to the third floor of the apartments. I don't clean people's bedrooms or anything and invade their private space, but I do keep the common areas looking nice. The bridge connecting the church and the apartments is fairly long and narrow, with gray industrial-type carpeting on the floor and big glass windows along the walls. At night, the only thing you can really see out of the windows besides your own reflection is a street lamp in a parking lot to the west and the vague outline of the manse to the east. And for the past 4 years, every single night that I've been on that bridge, I've seen a bright orange light glowing in the attic window of the minister's house. But last night, there was nothing. The manse was completely dark, the attic empty. The sight of it chilled me to the bone. All of a sudden, it just felt disturbing, sinister almost. Quickly making my way across the bridge, I couldn't think of anything but the dark attic and the terror it filled me with. That was until I heard something. Footsteps behind me, slow but heavy. I froze. The steps stopped too. I turned around. Nothing. Just a long gray corridor, empty as a casket. Suddenly, I felt like I was suffocating. Still facing the church end of the bridge, I took one slow step backwards and waited. Nothing followed. I took another step backwards. Still silence. I turned back around and broke out into a dead sprint. My blood was pounding too loud in my ears to hear if something was sprinting after me. I barreled into the third floor of the residential building. The hallway in there is tighter since it's lined with little offices and storage rooms for the community outreach stuff. I grabbed the first doorknob I saw, blessedly unlocked, and slammed myself inside. I was in a small square room with one desk, a bunch of old brochures, and a flickering ceiling light that makes the whole place look like a dying fish tank. I leaned against the door, panting hard. Suddenly, the doorknob, which I was still holding in my hand, rattled against my grip, gently at first, then after a brief pause, violently, like someone was trying to break in. And whoever it was, they knew my name. They were whispering it. They must have said it 4 or even 5 times. I wanted to scream for help, but something stopped me and I fell down to my knees, still holding onto the doorknob, and I started to pray. Please, God, please protect me from whatever is out there. And then the rattling and the whispering stopped. Silence fell. I let go of the doorknob and felt like I was about to start crying. And then the door suddenly opened, and I screamed. I heard someone else scream, and I looked up. It was the minister. I won't get into the details of the conversation that followed, but I will say that trying to explain how I'd ended up in a supply closet on the third floor of the apartment building was difficult. I was mortified, having to admit that I got spooked by what? Some wind that maybe sounded like my name, the echo of my own footsteps in the corridor, or his? It was humiliating. By the time the conversation was over, I was infinitely more embarrassed about the evening than I was freaked out about it. But then right as we were about to part ways, something dawned on me, and I asked, Reverend, how did you find me? Something flickered behind his eyes at this, something that looked for a moment like fear, but just for a moment, and then it was gone. Well, he said, I heard you. I heard you call my name.
I don't get it.
So they both heard something call their names.
Oh, and the minister thought it was the janitor calling his name.
Yep, exactly. So he came to look for him because he thought he heard the janitor calling out his name.
Got it. I was like, I'm so confused.
Yeah, so the janitor hears somebody call his name.
Yeah.
He then gets spooked. Then he thinks he hears footsteps, and the footsteps might not have been paranormal. They might have been the minister coming to look for him because the minister also heard his name. So I think like he went from this thing of like, oh my God, this is definitely paranormal to, oh no, I was just being ridiculous and got myself all worked up to, holy shit, how do I explain that?
Yeah.
And then maybe a little mutual kind of moment without, saying it of understanding that they maybe each heard a ghost.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Got all turned around.
That's okay. No pics with this story, but I did find a huge New Light Christian Center church compound just outside of Houston, Texas. Just looking for like pictures of big compounds. That could be something like this. Listed for sale for $15 million last summer.
Oh my God.
6 separate houses spread over 24 acres in the Houston suburb of Spring. All these photos courtesy of realtor.com. This is an aerial view. They got tennis courts, volleyball.
This is a church?
Church compound. Yeah, it's where like the minister lived and his staff.
I have so many. Get out of here.
Uh-huh.
Aren't you supposed to live?
Well, I think he's one of those prosperity guys.
Yeah. He prayed for it and Jesus gave him money. Got it.
Mm-hmm. And all this is
Oh,
tax.
is this a salon?
Salon inside
Yeah, no,
there?
tax-free. Absolutely. This is definitely a nonprofit.
Uh-huh. And actually this guy, I'm not going to like get into it with his name and stuff, but the guy who owned that.
Uh-huh. Let me guess.
Allegations.
Uh-huh.
Of spousal abuse. And his wife, after some disturbing pictures surfaced online, left him, divorced him, and then they put that up for sale.
Well.
But yeah, that is crazy. I know. I do wonder. I'm like, how do you justify that? Because it's like,
how? Well, even like the Catholic Church, it's like I think they own more real estate than like, I forget what the comparison is. It's like, but they own a preposterous amount of real estate.
Totally. But like
tax free, baby.
But if an archbishop was living, I mean, and I'm not like defending necessarily. You know, I know there's different things are problematic, but like it would be different. I feel like if an archbishop lived in an opulent palace.
Totally.
I mean, the Pope kind of does. The Vatican. But
well,
like
the new Pope is very like he has been like adamantly pushing back against that. And doesn't want, because the last Pope was like that too. Yeah. He was like, he wanted like a very simple burial and didn't want all these things. And it's like,
that's nice.
Well, it is nice because that's what your book says.
Right.
You know, so
totally.
Practice what you preach kind of thing, you know?
No, I thought that compound was it was wild, man. What a place to live.
I know. I was like, when I see a place like that, if you wouldn't have told me that was a church compound, I would think like an athlete, a celebrity, like, and generally in that case, I don't give a shit how you spend your money.
And generally, even celebrities don't have that many like other exterior houses. Like they'll have like, you know, a staff.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
They might live by themselves. They might just have people come in during the day and clean things up or whatever, like an assistant. But that's pretty crazy to have like a true compound.
Yeah, no, that was wild. Like nail salon, tennis courts, like various people living on the property.
Yeah, it looked like a place owned by Hilton or whatever that would be like one of their nicer resorts where you pay extra to stay in this, you know, bougie retreat center.
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like, retreat center.
Yeah.
All right, well, are you and Trad Layla ready to hang out and hear a few stories?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, you're welcome. Let's get going. Hey, Dan. Hey, Lindsay. My name is Kayla. A friend at work was obsessed with your show and kept saying, just give it 3 episodes and you'll be hooked.
That's nice.
Well, she was right. I didn't expect to be submitting anything, but after hearing an older story that involved a creature connected to water, I felt like I had to share this. This is a story about a trip I took to Croatia, to a region called Gorski Kotar, aka the Green Lungs of Croatia. It is absolutely stunning. It's green and hilly, just breathtaking. I stayed near a small, serene lake not far from Lokvi. I had planned this trip for months. I'm a teacher and I save up for one big international trip every few years. I joined a small travel group that provided a local guide. There were only 8 of us plus the travel guide, which was awesome. When I was doing my planning, I read about the local legend of the rusalka, a vengeful water spirit said to lure people, usually men, into the water and drown them.
The rusalka?
The rusaka.
Oh, it's very sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. In some versions, it's a woman who died violently in or near the water. In others, it's more ancient, something elemental that has always lived in the lakes and rivers. I joked about it with friends before I left. I even posted a meme about getting, quote, mermaid murdered on my Instagram when I landed. That feels so messed up right now. Our group stayed in a small renovated lodge next to the lake. It had this fairy tale look to it. Ivy growing on the stone walls, pine trees surrounding everything. It was peaceful, but also maybe a little too quiet. I was the only American in the group. There was an older couple from Germany, a pair of sisters from South Africa, a solo traveler from the UK named Dev, and a very chill couple from Toronto named Julian and Marco. Our guide, Luca, was a tall, broad Croatian guy who looked like he had just walked out of a cologne ad. He was charming and funny and clearly loved his region. On our first night, he gave us a casual rundown of the lake's history, its wildlife, the abandoned chapel nearby, and then, just as the sun was setting, he told us about the rusalka. Local lore says she appears on the shore during the first full moon of summer. he said, in that kind of tone where you can't tell if someone's joking or not. She grows angry and hungry when it's been too long. It felt like he was just trying to give us a good campfire story. Julian raised his glass and said, well, guess we better not go skinny dipping tonight. And everyone giggled. The next few days were great. We hiked, ate amazing local food, explored tiny villages. But then, on the fourth night, things shifted. We'd had a big dinner, and we were sitting on a deck overlooking the lake. It was June 4th, just after 10 p.m. I remember the date because we had talked about how it was the first night of the full moon. The moon was bright, reflecting off the black water. Luca had gone to bed early, while the rest of us were sipping wine and chatting when we noticed that Dev wasn't there. Julian was the first to say it. Has anyone seen Dev? We figured he had gone to smoke or maybe get some air. He wasn't a super social guy, always kind of at the edge of the group. I got up to check inside, but he wasn't in the common area or in any of the hallways. When I opened the front door to call for him, I noticed something weird. There were wet footprints on the stone steps leading up from the path near the lake. Bare feet, just one set going up the steps. I called out to the others. We stared at the wet footprints together. And then Julian joked nervously, maybe Dev went for a midnight swim. A strange low humming sound was coming from the water. It sounded feminine, like a woman's hum, too far away to make it out, but definitely there and definitely heard by all of us. We ran down the path with our phone flashlights blazing, screaming Dev's name. When we arrived at the edge of the lake, it was completely still, nothing but moonlight and fog rolling across the surface. Marco shouted, and we all turned our flashlights toward the dock. Dev's shoes were there, just his shoes and his phone. We searched for hours along with Luca, who had now called the police. The next day, they sent divers into the lake, but they didn't find anything. Not his body, not even a piece of clothing, just nothing. The weirdest part was that Luca told us that the same lake had taken a swimmer a year prior, a teenage boy who'd gone missing during a summer camping trip. Locals had whispered about the rusalka, just like they were now. What got to me the most was the reaction of the townspeople. The lodge owner, the cafe waitress, even Luca himself. There was this resigned sadness, like they weren't surprised it had happened. And maybe they felt a bit of relief too, grateful the rusalka had taken a tourist and not someone they loved. One older woman we met told me something I'll never forget. Her name was Ivana. She ran a small bakery in the village. She said, "You should not laugh at our stories. The spirit, she is old, and she is hungry. The water gives, and the water takes. Be careful. Be grateful it was not one of yours." How the hell do I even respond to that? We stayed one more night, but no one slept. I kept the lights on and the windows closed, even though it was so hot. I wasn't going to risk it. Around 2 a.m., I swore I heard that humming again. When I looked out the window, there were wet footprints leading up to the porch. But I never heard anyone walking around, and I never saw anything. When we left the next day, Luca gave us each a small wooden charm with something carved into it that I didn't recognize. He told us, "The lake sees who respects it." I still don't have any real explanations about anything that happened. Maybe Dev had some kind of episode. Maybe he went for a swim and drowned. But then again, if so, where was his body? Why was there no trace of him? I don't feel right posting pictures from that trip. It feels, I guess, disrespectful now. I keep dreaming about the lake, about standing on that dock and hearing that humming behind me. Anyways, love the show. Keep it creepy. Kayla.
Thank you, Kayla. I totally know why I had that moment at the start, though.
Yeah.
This is so random because we did not talk about any of the details of the episode.
Correct.
The Time Suck episode I literally just recorded yesterday as we record this was an episode about Russian folklore, magic, like wizards, like a history of Slavic lore and magic and stuff. And I actually covered the rusalka.
No way.
As far as talking about it from a very different angle of how this creature, what have you, was once a goddess.
Okay.
Like referred to as like way hundreds of years ago. And then as like Christianity moved into the region, and what would happen a lot of times is like old gods and goddesses would frankly turn into monsters.
Okay.
They would be kept around in some form, but they would morph because they weren't allowed to be worshipped anymore. And the rusalka was once like a fertility type goddess. And then the legend shifted and it became like basically a mistreated woman, which is kind of weird that there's all these like, La Llorona type stories. But in this one, it's really sad where it's like the lore was if a woman was like, essentially killed by a lover, by her husband, died in pregnancy, something bad happened to her. A lot of times with a man, the man would not have to wander the earth as some unclean spirit. But in this legend, she would. And she would like take her revenge every 7 years by drowning someone.
Dang.
And like the way she would drown them is like she would lure them with her voice or a sound or her beautiful looks. They would come out into the water and then she would get them tangled up in her long, lush hair so that they couldn't swim properly and would drown them.
This is so random.
And I was like, that's so weird. I mean, I'd never heard of it before, just talking about it yesterday. And then I was like, wait, what?
I know the look on your face, and then you were looking around, and so I thought maybe you heard or saw something in here. No, it was just a memory kind of thing.
I was just trying to place it. I'm like, and I talk about so many different things. It just took me a little while. And in that episode, I'm all over the place for 3 hours. That was just one small part.
Yeah.
But I was like, wait a minute, that is weirdly familiar. I was worried for a second that we'd already covered it. But no, different show.
That's awesome, actually.
Yeah.
I love the timing of that. Yeah, it also, like, as you were talking about the Russian version, which I mean, it's not like
Slavic,
all similar. It made me think about, I think it was summer camp 2023. You told a story, or maybe I did. I thought you did, about like some friends at a lake, and a guy got like a little tipsy.
Yep, that was at the last summer camp we did.
So 2023. Okay, because
I told that story.
Okay, yeah, and then there's like some beautiful woman on the water, but maybe not. Yeah, that was a great one. Yeah,
good.
Women in water. You got to watch out.
I know there's a long history and folklore of women in water. I mean, yeah, and again, it's like, is it because there's been a lot of spirits who are killing people in water? Or is it just because that we are naturally afraid of water because we can drown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do one more woman water story.
Okay, here we go.
Hi, Dan and Lynze.
Hello.
First off, thank you for everything you two do. I fly through episodes every night after the kids are in bed.
Thank you.
It's become my favorite me time treat. I especially appreciate the way you both approach legends with respect, but also with space for skeptics like me, or like I used to be. Hearing you talk about La Llorona brought something up that I've never told anyone outside of my family. It's not that I didn't believe in the legend, I just didn't think it applied to me. But then something happened that still makes my skin crawl, and I honestly don't know how to explain it. This happened in 2017. My wife Celia and I were living in Austin with our two kids, Mateo and Luna, who were 6 and 8 at the time. That summer, we decided to take them to visit my grandparents in Zacatecas, Mexico. Zacatecas. It was the first time we'd made the trip as a family. I grew up visiting my abuelos every few summers, but it had been years since I'd been back. The town is so tiny. One of those places with a single dusty road, stray dogs sleeping in the shade, and no cell service unless you walk up a hill and hold your phone just right. My abuelos still live in the same adobe house they've had for decades, with chickens roaming free and fresh tortillas every morning. Heaven, honestly. We thought it would be fun to give the kids a break from screens and traffic and just let them be wild. I wanted them to run barefoot, to chase bugs, and to stay up late with their bisabuelos telling scary stories about around a bonfire. The first few days were perfect. We picked fruit from trees, grilled carne asada in the backyard, and watched the stars. Real stars, not like the light polluted mess we have in the city. We all loved it. One night, after the kids were tucked in, I sat outside with my abuela, just chatting. And she, on her own, for no reason, brought up La Llorona out of nowhere. Just said, "You remember that story, mija? You need to tell your little ones." I kind of laughed. And I said, yeah, I remember. She cries for her drowned kids and steals others if they're out too late. The kind of story you scare your cousins with when you're about 8. But Abuela gave me a look. Tight lips, furrowed brow. She is real, and she walks near the river. I tried to keep it light, but she wasn't joking. She told me people in the town hear her wails, especially in the early months of summer. She said 2 years back, a teenage boy from the next town over vanished after walking home from his tio's house at dusk. They found his shoes near the arroyo, but never found him. Abuela said he didn't listen. His parents didn't listen, and La Llorona does not care who you are. It creeped me out a bit, but I didn't say anything. Just nodded and sipped my tea. I figured it was one of those cultural warnings meant to keep kids safe after dark. A cautionary tale, nothing more. The next morning, I told Celia about it, and we just laughed. She was raised Jewish in Chicago, where ghost stories were more like urban legends. Still, we decided to respect the rules. We kept the kids inside after dark and made sure the doors were locked by sundown, just in case. About 5 days into our trip, Celia and I ran into town to pick up some groceries and left the kids with my cousin's teenage daughter, Letty. She's 17, responsible, and the kids adored her. When we got back, Letty looked off, pale, and was very quiet. She told us that while the kids were playing in the living room, she'd heard crying. A woman's voice. At first, she thought it was just a neighbor, but then the sound didn't move. It just stayed there, hanging in the air. When she got up to check, she saw wet footprints on the dirt just outside the back door. No other signs of anyone. And it hadn't rained in over a week. We tried to brush it off. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe a stray dog had wandered by and stepped in the water trough. Still, I made sure all the windows were locked that night. But it wasn't enough. Around 2:30 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of whispering. I thought it was the kids talking to each other, but when I checked, only Mateo was awake. He was sitting on the edge of his bed, facing the window, whispering something I couldn't make out. When I asked who he was talking to, he said, "The lady outside. She's crying." I ran to the window, just the dark yard and the sound of the river in the distance. I pulled Mateo from the window, his small body oddly cold despite the summer heat. I didn't sleep the rest of the night and opted to stay in the kids' room until sunrise, just watching. I told Abuela the next morning. She wasn't surprised. "She listens near the water," she said, crossing herself. "She speaks to the children first. You must be careful, mija." We didn't let the kids outside at all after that. Even during the day, we kept them close. I started counting the hours until we'd be headed back to Texas. The last night of our trip, we had a little goodbye dinner. Some neighbors came by, and we all stayed up way too late. In the chaos of it all, I forgot to lock the back window in the kids' room. Around 3 a.m., Luna screamed. I flew out of bed, nearly tripping over my own 2 feet. She was standing by the open window, sobbing. Mateo was gone. I can't even describe the terror that I felt in that moment. I was screaming his name. Celia was running around the house. Letty was crying. It was pure and utter chaos. I flung the back door open and ran towards the river, calling for my son. Then I saw him, standing barefoot in the field, maybe 10 feet from the bushes, facing the arroyo. I grabbed him and pulled him into my arms. He was ice cold to the bone, like he'd been submerged in water. His pajamas were damp, and his eyes were glassy and unfocused. When I asked him why he had left the house, he said, "She told me her kids were missing. She said I could help her." We left that next morning. My abuela cried and said we were lucky, that most people don't get a warning or even a second chance, that La Llorona takes what she wants. Thankfully, Mateo doesn't remember much, just that he dreamed of a woman in white who wanted to show him something by the water, and that she was very, very sad. I've heard people say La Llorona is just a way to scare kids into behaving, or that she's a metaphor for grief or guilt. And maybe that's true. But I also know what I saw, what I felt, and I know we're lucky. If you ever visit the small towns near the rivers in Mexico, don't laugh at the stories. Don't assume it's just superstition. Lock the windows, keep the kids close, and if you hear a woman crying outside, don't open the door. Carolina.
Thank you, Carolina.
Ay.
Ay, ay, ay.
So many women trying to pull us to the water.
That is interesting. Just thinking about just approaching Carolina, in that what like I would probably talking to her grandma
Uh-huh.
about these old stories and just being like, okay, grandma, it's like, yeah, I mean, I get that these stories are out there, but they're just which is there is that academic background of them or the folklore, if you want to study them analytically, where it's like, yes, they're told to keep children away from the river. Makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Come up with a scary monster that's going to kill you if you go near the water. It's a good way to keep your kid from being drowned. And then, but then, when you start to hear things after that, and then, one of your kids is like, I heard this woman whispering or whatever.
Totally.
Oh my gosh, it's funny. I would also be like Carolina, where I would go from being analytical and being very skeptical to a full believer pretty much immediately. And or if not a full believer, a believer enough to do what she did, where it's like, lock the doors.
Yeah.
We're treating this very seriously, and I'm going to have trouble sleeping now because I'm like, wait, is that something real?
Yeah. And are my kids safe?
Right. And then I thought of the previous story where the person Dev drowned, and then around this folklore of the rusalka. And then it just made me think, I mean, it's a dark thought, but what a crazy way to die if you are not a believer, and especially if you're familiar with the academic side of all this, of it came from this syncretic background where this religion merged with this one, and they transferred this old legend into a new form, and that's how the monster was born. But then all of a sudden you're staring that thing in the face. And just that would be, I mean, you wouldn't be able to talk about it with anybody.
I know, that's what sucks too.
Because you're gone.
I know. Is it
right? But God, that'd be intense.
It would be so intense. You would die in such terror and fear, which also sucks.
And your mind would implode as you're dying. You're your whole world gets flipped upside down.
That's right. Everything you thought was real, now you don't know. And now you die with so many questions. I mean, I think we die with so many questions anyways, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would just be it would suck so bad to not be able to get away from it.
Right.
To go back and be like, it's real.
Right.
I fucking saw it. But then everyone's going to think you're crazy, that you had a near-death experience.
The closest I have with that is that DMT lady.
Oh.
Where it's I just saw some article pop up on my newsfeed today again about DMT, about it's this chemical or molecular structure or whatever that gets released. They think when we die, and it helps ease us into death. But it also obviously this powerful hallucinogen. And a lot of people will report seeing entities, and there has been an entity that I can see, this female goddess kind of vision.
Yeah.
And I go back and forth in my mind, where part of my thinking is well, okay, if other people are claiming the same thing, it's just some product of this weird chemical release, and it just to help us, I don't know, feel better when we die. But then this other part of me is or it's allowing us to access a dimension that we can't normally access, and we're seeing something that's a very real thing out there that is this very real goddess. I don't know.
But
when I think about the goddess thing, I'm like, God, but then what else could be real? I don't know. I
would love a death goddess, though, that eases you to the other side.
I know,
because none of us know, especially as I'm getting older, not we're old or anything, but it's I'm going to be 42, and we're inching closer to death every day.
Yeah,
anyways,
think about it more.
Yeah, it just becomes when I was 20, death seemed, if I was going to die young, it was going to be some accident, something that I didn't see coming.
Yep.
Now I'm well, I can see death coming.
Yeah,
it really does start to shift. And our parents are getting older. My dad's coming to visit, next week. And I just recently saw a photo of him, and I'm like, fuck, my dad looks fucking old all of a sudden. It just happens, right? And so you start to think about okay, well, what am I going to be like at 70? What am I going to be like at 80? And if I knew for certain, if someone could truly confirm for me that no matter what my path to death is, that in those final moments, this beautiful, calm, peaceful entity was going to show up and take my hand, and I was just going to take one deep breath. And be gone, but it was going to be peaceful, that would make it way less scary right now.
Yeah, totally.
Marching towards it and just being I don't fucking know what that's going to be like. Because today I'm not afraid to die.
Yeah.
But ask me when I'm 85 and it's definitely around the corner, I think I'm going to start to be a little panicked.
Yeah, I don't know.
I imagine I will.
And I think with that entity, why would our brain, what evolutionary purpose would there be in, as we're dying, to see something comforting? Because it's not if we don't see something comforting, we're not going to die.
And
it's not once we're dead, our shell, our husk is of any use. It's not like, oh, that's a
Mhm.
happy corpse because that corpse got to see a guiding goddess when it died.
Right.
And so therefore that corpse, I don't know, is going to kick out more fertilizer. I just don't understand like what
Right.
the point is
I mean,
other than something spiritual.
well, I was just gonna say, like, I'm a non-believer, but
Yeah.
maybe it is. Maybe it is something. Maybe it's like this special gift from the universe, from the ultimate creator, whatever you believe in. Whatever.
Then that is a spiritual belief.
And I didn't say I believe this.
Oh,
I just said,
okay,
like,
gotcha,
maybe.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just like, but like, oh, well, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I don't know, lost it.
Yeah, you're saying maybe it's a special gift from the universe where something gets to guide us out.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe that was the whole thought.
Yeah, maybe.
Do you want to thank the Annabelles?
Yes, I do. I would like to thank the following Annabelles for helping us to make such an impactful donation to the Red and Blue Foundation this month. Jeremy Showerbrock, Juliana Esquivel, Ashley Stone King, B. Baker, Summer Martin, Girth Brooks, nice, Cindy Myers, Shirley Scott, Togepi. I'm so sorry. I think that's how you say that. Togepi, Togepi.
Yeah, it sounds like a good, yeah.
And Bernie Man 6000. But like not like Bernie Sanders,
Like
but
Burning Man.
Like burning, but Bernie.
Yeah. Marissa Powell, I would like to thank her and the other Annabelles who support the show this week. Some new ones: Marissa Powell, Caridad Perez, Josie Sweeney, Junie, Ro Rodri, Kayla, Anita, Amon Bickley, Brent Cohen, and Rob Ripperdan. Ripperdan. Yeah,
like
and
it.
spelled just like the word Ripper and my name.
I like it.
But it could be a real last name, Ripperdan.
Yeah, it might be like Repearden or something.
Repearden, maybe.
Might be said differently, but
Yeah.
if it's Repearden, 1,000 times it's Ripperdan.
Ripperdan, party of three? Yeah.
I got a voicemail today. Hello, Mrs. Cummins. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. It's great. I understand.
Humans?
I mean,
Yeah.
when you look at it.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Who
Okay, I
knows?
just have 2 quick spoopy shout outs this week. My first one is to Kaylin from Riley. Happy birthday to my partner and all things creepy crawly. I'm sorry. Happy birthday to my partner and all things creepy crawly, Kaylin.
Nice.
You mean the world to me. I'll never tired of listening to Type O Negative or watching the original Crow with you. When Riley and I were emailing back and forth about this shout out, he was telling me that Kaylin is an amazing tattoo artist.
Yeah.
And so out of curiosity, I was just like, oh, give me your handle. I want to look. Her work is so fucking incredible. You guys can go check her out at witchywoman_Inc. on Instagram.
Nice.
So good.
And Typo Negative and The Crow, that is, man, such a 90s, very specific 90s vibe.
Yes, I love it.
Yep.
I love it. They're a really stinking cute couple. And then that was our only shout out. So I just added in another little shout out this week just to all of our fans, from Dan and I. Just, life is kind of crazy and hard and up and down and political climates and family dramas and all the things. And we just want to remind all of you that you're just never, ever alone. We have an amazing community here that you are included in and welcome to. Please get involved in it. Facebook groups, Discord, all the things. Yeah, just sometimes it's just good to be reminded that you matter, that you have purpose in this world, and that we are really glad that you're here.
I just shared, actually, in that same Russian magic episode, an update, just talking about community, and specifically our community.
Yeah.
But it was somebody on the Time Suck side, the Cult of the Curious, and they shared like the beginning of like a weight loss journey a while back, like a year or two ago. And then somebody they had no relationship with, did not know, just another, person inside the private Facebook group, commented and was like, way to go, and just like gave them some like attaboys.
Yeah.
And then that kind of went back and forth, and they started talking. This other person was an ultra distance runner, and they started really kind of like, encouraging them to keep at it and start, maybe try out triathlons, all this kind of stuff. Anyway, the person who wrote in just said that like, I don't know if I would have lost these, 60 pounds or whatever it was,
No way.
Just stop drinking, feel fully transformed. And like, I owe a lot of it to this person, this random person doesn't know me, just being kind and encouraging me and leaving these nice comments in this community.
Love this.
And it was like, part of like a big important life transformation. So like just showing somebody a little kindness online at the right time can do so much for them.
Yeah. I try to remember like just even when I'm out at the store and even if when I'm busy or in a rush or in a bad mood, like to just smile at people.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know, that like age old saying, like you just until you walk a mile in someone else's shoes. It's like
Yeah.
you just don't know what someone else is going through. It really like can make such a huge difference to just smile.
Mm-hmm. I referenced Marie in that same comment in that same update.
Yeah.
When we were with dinner with Jerome and Marie and that waitress, and she's like, "You have beautiful eyes." And the girl tried to deflect and felt embarrassed, and she was like, "No." She's like, "You're really beautiful." And then you could tell she was just like walking a little peppy. It's like, what a nice thing to hear. She shared some nice compliments with you that night.
Yeah.
Made your night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff matters.
Yeah, it does. You can be having a good day, a bad day, but just that little boost can just put
little
you
acts of
right
kindness.
over the edge.
Yeah.
I know.
You never know what the butterfly effect will be of that.
Yeah, remember when that was like a thing, like random acts of kindness? That was like a thing for years people just talk about.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back.
Yeah, I think it's still around.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's perpetuate it.
Yes, let's.
Well, thanks, everybody. That's our show. Thanks for continuing to send in your personal tales of terror to my story at scaredtodeathpodcast.com. You can email us for everything else, info@scaredtodeathpodcast.com. Thanks to Logan Keith for scoring today's show. Thanks to Heather Rylander for organizing the My Story emails, to book editor Drew Atana, polishing and preparing listener stories for book, probably number
This is still 6.
Okay, still
this
6.
This is the very last one. This is the last one.
Right on the edge. Thanks to Kyler Cummins for finding the first story I shared this week.
Fun.
Yeah, our son Kyler. That's so cool.
Good job, bub.
Thanks to Molly Box finding the second. We're on Facebook and Instagram where we post pics that accompany episodes and more. And Kyler did a great job on that story. Really great. At Scared to Death Podcast. We have a we have a private Facebook group, Creeps and Peepers, full of fellow horror lovers. Big thanks to the All Seen Eyes, the Creeps and Peepers moderators, who probably don't get thanked enough for making our online community such a welcoming place. Enjoy your nightmares, Creeps and Peepers. Hope you were scared to death.
Bye.
If spirits threaten me in this place, fight water by water and fire by fire. Banish their souls into nothingness and remove their powers until the last trace. Let these evil beings flee through time and space. Evil may pass through, but has no home here within, scared to death.
Mad Magic Productions.
Women in water. You got to watch out.